Hi, and welcome at this demo about Transmittal Flow, a document transmittal solution built on SharePoint Embed as a solution for the SharePoint Hackathon 2026. Now, since we're in the SharePoint Hackathon, I'm assuming we all work with SharePoint. But one of the issues that we encounter a lot is that there are industries where regulations or processes require to share a bunch of files with external parties and review a somewhat formal sign-off. And you can share individual files or you can share individual SharePoint sites. But one of the things we see a lot is that those customers work with dedicated tools or virtual data rooms to share their files or share their transmittals. And using external tools typically means that you cannot collaborate in M365 anymore. So there are some downsides of that. And if you look at the scenario, typically you will want to keep things like governance and all the controls that you have in M365 in place because, well, you're already paying for it, you're already making your life easy, so why not reuse some of those components? And that's where the idea of Transmittal Flow is coming from. Let's imagine that you would use SharePoint for your project sites, could be multiple, you already have document libraries, you already have a bunch of files in there, and the idea behind this is that with a SharePoint Framework extension, you could fairly easily select a bunch of files and then say something like create a transmittal. Now the create transmittal will be sent to the Transmittal Flow or Transmit Flow app API, and the API will pick that up and say, hey, I'm going to create a new transmittal. And that transmittal actually needs to be stored at a client. So what we can do is we can create a SharePoint Embed container per client, making sure that all the files are logically separated and all the things around governance and security are the way that you would expect them in a scenario like this. And since we are still in the Microsoft experience, we can use the Graph API to read items, move items, do all the things that we need to do. And then we can also generate a client invitation, making sure that only the appropriate client get access to the scenario. And you can even create a folder per transmittal so that you have a separation of all the transmittals that you've sent. Then you could have a client portal where a client could sign in. And since we're in SharePoint Embed, they could do things like view and co-author on files if you want to. And if they say, I'm ready, I'm agreeing on this scenario, what you can do is you can say approve or reject my transmittal. You could insert AI assistants, you can do advanced scenarios, you could invite people otherwise, but this is in general the idea of the solution. So with that, let's go to our demo. Let me switch over. And when I switch over, what I can do is I can first go to my dashboard. I'm signed in as a signed-in user. I can see that there are no clients yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a demo client and I'm going to invite an external account. So I'm going to make sure that I can actually work with that, with those files. So what happens in the background, the API is being called and a new SharePoint Embed container is being created. It's going to take a second, but it will show up and it will say, okay, you've created a new client. There's no transmittals yet. So what I then can do is I can go back to my SharePoint environment and I'm going to select a few files and I'm going to say, hey, I'm going to send a transmittal. And I can pick up the demo client that just got created. I can say this is transmittal 1. I'm going to give it a revision. I can give it a deadline. I can ask specific questions. Can you please review? And I can say send transmittal. Now this is going to take a second because it's going to make sure that those files are being actually copied to my container in my SharePoint Embed container. And once those files are in there, I can see I can copy this link, but I'm not going to do that right away. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my dashboard and I can actually see that it created a new transmittal. It actually has a follow-up number, so I can click on it. I can see the status. I have a deadline. I can open it and I see the files that are in my transmittal. I see it's still waiting on review. I can click on it and open that content. I can see the actual file being moved over to my SharePoint Embed container. And with that, as an admin or as a signed-in user, I can actually see the things that I want to see. Now I can go back here, I can copy this link, and I have a in private browser. So let me see if I can switch to that as well. That's this one. I'll need to get a new link. So you see that I can send this link. It contains a token, so this link is valid for the until the deadline. And with this link, I can go here, or I can pick up a scenario where I actually need to sign in. It's configuration. So I could say only people that are invited to this client can access this specific review. But if I pick up this review, I can say submit review. I can decide whether, oh, I'm okay with this because I'm not signed in yet. I'll need to provide my name, otherwise I cannot submit anything. There we go. Agree. I can say submit review, and it's approved. And when I go back and I go to my dashboard, I see the status has changed to approved. And the cool thing about this is that if I now go back to my SharePoint, I can see that it automatically updated the transmittal number. It set the transmittal status to approved, and it gave the comment back. So now within my SharePoint, I can see that the reviewer actually agreed with this transmittal. So this is a really fun way to play with the SharePoint Embed containers. You can invite external people, give them a custom portal where they need to sign in, do their things, rather than give them full access to your SharePoint environment, and you have a dedicated audit log of what's happening in your environment.